The time by Carrie Chris is 6 p.m. Time for CBX Business News. The Business News headlines is brought to you by QMax Wealth Management, making more possible.
Earnings scale, growth holds under pressure, and monetary policy tightens again. Good evening and welcome to CBX Business News for Wednesday, February 4, 2026. I'm Rochelle Moncrief. Thanks for joining us. Coming up, Cygnus Credit Investments breaks the $15 million revenue mark as Puerto Rico-led growth reshapes the company's earnings mix. Also ahead, IMF reports 3% growth for Antigua and Barbuda, even as debt pressures continue to cloud the outlook. And later, Reserve Bank of Australia delivers a 25 basis point rate hike, with the Treasurer pointing to private sector demand as inflation risks re-emerge. Stay with us as we unpack these stories and more right after the break.
Wealth is not simply counted in dollars or cents, but in the time we spend with love, in love, giving love. Wealth is not simply a means to an end. It is the means to live out loud. Wealth is more than money. It's about family, the memories you create, the legacy you leave behind, and your ability to enjoy life in the moment. It's also about seeing the QMax possibilities and seizing investment opportunities to achieve the future you want and deserve. Which is why QMax Wealth will focus on your investments so you can experience more. Because true wealth is truly more. To start investing today, call 876-926-7767.
Are so much book you need for high school?
I'll show you how to make sure you have all the money for my books and even some extra. It's called budgeting, Dad. Making a budget is the most important thing you can do to track your money. It keeps a record of how much you make, how much you spend, where you spend it, and most importantly, how much you can save. Write down all your income, write down all your expenses, see where you can cut down and allot more money to more important things, like saving.
I'm trading stocks to achieve my financial goals.
I'm also trading stocks to achieve my financial goals.
Start a conversation with the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
Check jamstockx.com for information and a list of registered stockbrokers. You can also call the Jamaica Stock Exchange at 876-967-3271 for information on how to begin. I am achieving my financial goals.
I'm achieving my financial goals.
The local news is brought to you by Derriman Trading, better from the start. Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean flavors and fragrances, tease the senses, and Pulse Investments.
Welcome back to CBX Business News. We begin with record income growth at one of the Caribbean's leading private credit investment firms. Cygnus Credit Investments, SCI, has entered a new phase of scale, one marked by a decisive shift in where its earnings power now resides. For the financial year ended June 30, 2025, the private credit firm delivered its strongest revenue performance since listing, lifting total investment income beyond the $15 million mark. The update was delivered by SCI's Chief Investment Officer Jason Morris, who was speaking at the company's annual general meeting earlier today.
The company would have generated, for the first time in its history, would have exceeded $15 million in total investment income, coming out to 15.39 million. So
at the same time, the SCI's growth center of gravity shifted decisively. Morris has identified Puerto Rico as the company's dominant earnings engine.
The performance was mainly driven by the performance of the investment that SCI did in Puerto Rico. And the Puerto Rico company would have generated in the 2 financial years since the restructuring exercise that would have taken place after the acquisition, 8.85 million in cumulative net profit, which is more than all of the net profit the company would have generated in its first 18 years or so in existence.
And while income surged to record levels, Cygnus Credit Investments' bottom line moved in the opposite direction. The company is reporting a 29% decline in net profit for the financial year ended June 30, 2025, reflecting a deliberate decision to absorb early risk cost tied to portfolio restructuring. Morris says the profit pullback was driven primarily by upfront impairment allowances taken well ahead of final restructuring outcomes.
Despite those exceptional top-line numbers, net profit came out less than expected at 4.28 million, down 29%. And this was driven primarily by 2 things. One, we took the decision to early recognize higher impairment allowances for one portfolio company that presented a restructuring plan that was going through the process of being restructured. And even though that wasn't completed during the financial year, we decided to take the impairment charge on that upfront. And so that took us down because for the 9-month period, we were like 7, almost 8 million.
Mayberry Jamaican Equities MJE closed 2025 with a multi-billion-dollar paper loss, but management says the balance sheet remains resilient and a rebound story is still in play for this year. MJE ended the year with a 4.92 billion Jamaican dollar net loss and a 5.7 billion dollars total comprehensive loss, driven mainly by unrealized mark-to-market declines in its listed holdings. The biggest drag came from Supreme Ventures, where the stock's fall translated into roughly 3.3 billion Jamaican dollars in unrealized losses. Chief Executive Officer Gary Peart pointed to a major portfolio exit as the key factor behind Supreme Ventures' share price decline.
The largest contributor to the unrealized loss was Supreme Ventures. But again, not many people know that we had a former major shareholder that sold approximately 100 million shares over the last year. And that's a testament to the liquidity of SVL in the marketplace, that the market could absorb that volume of shares over that period of time. That's almost $2 billion worth of share sales. And so that's one thing. So it's the fall in the price was attributable mainly to the numbers or the performance of the company, which is fairly good given the hurricane. It's just that, as I said, somebody is realigning their portfolio and sold out a massive amount of shares.
That was Mayberry Investment Limited's CEO, Gary Peart. Still with financial news, Barita Investments Limited delivered another multi-billion-dollar profit in 2025, but earnings cooled sharply as market conditions normalized. The securities dealer reported profit of 3 billion Jamaican dollars for the year ended September 2025, down from 3.8 billion Jamaican dollars the year before, reflecting weaker fair value investment gains and softer trading income. Net operating revenue fell to $8.7 billion as gains on investments dropped by more than $2 billion year-on-year, underscoring the impact of tighter financial conditions and less favorable capital market movements. Still, Barita's balance sheet expanded meaningfully. Total assets climbed to nearly $150 billion, supported by growth in investment securities, receivables, and pledged assets, reinforcing its scale as one of Jamaica's dominant financial intermediaries. We move to the latest updates from the JSE equities. In Wednesday's trading session, the JSE market activity resulted in the trading of 109 stocks, of which 35 advanced, 57 declined, and 17 traded firm. Today's winners are Paramount Trading Jamaica, Iron Rock Insurance Company, G West Corporation Ordinary Shares, and CAC 2000 Limited, while leading the losers are Sterling Investments USD, Margaritaville Turks, Medical Disposables and Supplies, and MPC Caribbean Clean Energy. The main index declined by 5,655.23 points to close at 342,314.31 points. The junior market index advanced by 14.88 points to close at 3,358.54 points.
And it's time for Market Education Feature, brought to you by CariCris, Regional Ratings, Global Standard.
In today's Market Education Feature, we're looking at another natural resource term, conservation. Conservation refers to the responsible management and protection of natural resources so they remain available for future generations. It focuses on preserving ecosystems, biodiversity, and essential environmental processes while allowing resources to be used sustainably. This means activities like farming, logging, or mining can continue, but in ways that avoid long-term environmental damage. Conservation has become increasingly important as human activity has driven pollution, habitat loss, and climate change.
The Market Education Feature was brought to you by CariCris, Regional Ratings, Global Standards.
And that's it for the local news segment. Please stay with us. The regional news is up next.
The local news is brought to you by Diamond Trading, better from the start. Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean flavors and fragrances, tease the senses, and Pulse Investments.
FESCO started from 5 shareholders who believed that they could execute a fuel company as good as or as better than any multinational. The director shareholders always believed that the dealers within our network should be owners of the company. They believe that staff should be owners of the company. And specifically, also believe that the public should become shareholders. That cannot be facilitated by a bank loan. Our experience so far has translated into additional customers. Our transparency has allowed us to access credit easier and at better rates. So if you're a private company thinking about growing your profits, having better access to capital, I really think you should consider listing on the junior or the main market. Go ahead, have that conversation as soon as possible. We did it and we're very happy.
Welcome back. And now for the regional business news. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, says Antigua and Barbuda's economy is expanding, but warns that debt and financing pressures remain a key vulnerability. In its 2026 Article 4 concluding statement, the IMF estimates real GDP growth at 3% in 2025, supported by a rebound in construction activity, while tourism performance held steady. Inflation eased sharply to about 1.2%, down from 6.2% in 2024, driven largely by lower transportation costs, easing pressure on households and operating expenses. However, the fund cautions that public debt remains elevated at roughly 68% of GDP. While this marks a significant improvement from pandemic-era peaks, arrears to domestic and Paris Club creditors continue to pose risks to fiscal sustainability. Authorities are pursuing debt restructuring and liability management strategies aimed at freeing up financing for resilience building and climate-related projects. Looking ahead, the IMF projects economic growth of 2.8% in 2026, supported by higher visitor arrivals, expanded hotel and port capacity, and major events, including the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting later this year. Officials also highlighted the need to broaden the tax base, strengthen fiscal oversight, and improve social assistance programs to sustain long-term economic stability. With the general election just 1 week away, the campaign trail is intensifying as voters prepare to decide who will lead Barbados for the next term. The Barbados Labour Party, BLP, says its economic policies are designed to ease cost of living pressures while continuing to protect the most vulnerable. Speaking at a BLP public meeting in Christchurch on Tuesday, BLP President and Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley, says her government has deliberately spread the cost of public services across a broad base to keep prices and taxes as low as possible while avoiding risks to public health.
So that the government of Barbados, your government, this Barbados Labour Party government, determined that we needed to spread the burden of certain things to as large a base as possible to keep prices down, to keep the taxes down for those things. And whether we like it or not, the reality is that our water rates have been low, and I will not increase them until we get the quality of service up to a certain level. That's fair. But we still have to provide water for everybody. And then for garbage, we don't pay for garbage collection in this country typically. But when we were left broken and wrecked, we had to find a way to offset the cost of the collection of garbage, because what you do not want in the country is a public health crisis. Because health crises don't discriminate against nobody, as you found out in COVID.
That was BLP President and Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley. In other news, Trinidad and Tobago and the United Arab Emirates have signed an investment protection agreement at the World Government Summit in Dubai on February 3. The pact, signed by TNT's Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, Sean Sobers, and UAE Minister Mohammed bin Hadi Al Husseini, sets out a legally binding framework to protect and support new investments. It includes safeguards against expropriation, commitments to fair and equitable treatment, and formal dispute resolution mechanisms. The agreement builds on previous diplomatic engagement, including Prime Minister Kamla Persad Bissessa's September 2025 meeting with UAE officials at the United Nations, and is intended to deepen bilateral economic relations while lowering risk for cross-border investments. Officials say the agreement strengthens Trinidad and Tobago's investment credibility, positioning the country to attract a greater foreign direct investment, support economic diversification, and expand its participation in international trade and development initiatives. Moving now to the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 22 securities, of which 7 advanced, 5 declined, and 10 traded firm. Today's winners are CIBC Caribbean Bank, NCB Financial Group, Unilever Caribbean, and National Enterprises, while leading the losers are A.S. Bryden and Sons Holdings, Trinidad and Tobago NGL, First Citizens Group Financial Holdings, and Guardian Holdings. Trading activity resulted in the following movements. The All-TNT Index declined by 2.97 points to close at 1,388.37. The Composite Index advanced by 7.45 points to close at 957.50. The Cross-Listed Index advanced by 2.64 points to close at 69.44. The SME Index remained at 92.68. And we take a short break, but please do stay with us. The international news segment is up next.
Serious about building Jamaica? Build with solid PVC pipes and conduits, manufactured in Jamaica by Phosphate, made to the highest standard. Solid PVC pipes and conduits are made in Jamaica by Jamaicans for Jamaicans. Available at hardware stores across the island. Take some solid advice, support our economy, and build well. Buy solid PVC pipes. Next time, ask for solid brand PVC pipes and conduits. Call our distributors or Phosphate at 876-937-5099.
Welcome back. In international news, Australians with mortgages and businesses carrying debt are facing fresh pressure after the Reserve Bank of Australia, RBA, lifted the cash rate by 25 basis points. In a House meeting on Tuesday, Treasurer Dr. Jim Chalmers told Parliament that decision was difficult news for millions of Australians, but pushed back hard on claims that government spending is driving inflation.
The Independent Reserve Bank has increased the cash rate by 25 basis points. Now, this will be difficult news for millions of Australians with a mortgage, and we understand the pressure that this puts on Australian families and businesses. Now, while today's decision was widely expected, obviously that doesn't make it any easier. We know that many Australians are doing it tough, which is why we continue to roll out responsible cost of living relief, including a further tax cut this year and another one next year, both of them opposed by those opposite. At the same time, we're doing what we can to strengthen the budget and address our long-standing productivity challenge.
Chalmers also defended Labor's fiscal stance, saying the budget is more than $233 billion better than what his government inherited.
The budget is more than $233 billion better than we inherited from those opposite. And part of the reason for that is $114 billion in savings since we came to office, including $20 billion in the mid-year update, Mr. Speaker. Now, I want to make it really clear to the House and to people watching from home, Mr. Speaker, that the statement released by the Independent Reserve Bank explaining the decision that they have taken today does not mention government spending at all. It doesn't mention government spending at all, Mr. Speaker. In fact, it makes it very clear that the pressure on inflation is coming from private demand.
That was Treasurer of Australia, Jim Chalmers. From Australia's rate hike, we turn to Europe, where inflation is easing and policy is on pause. The National Bank of Poland held its main interest rate steady at 4% in February, in line with expectations, extending its policy pause for a second consecutive month as policymakers await updated macroeconomic forecasts before considering further easing. While the decision matched market consensus, opinions were divided, with some analysts anticipating a 25 basis point cut. Policymakers pointed to the absence of new inflation data and limited fresh information since the previous meeting. An updated inflation projection is due in March, which should provide clearer insight into whether the recent disinflation trend can be sustained. Inflation eased to 2.4% in December, close to the midpoint of the central bank's 1.5% to 3.5% target range. Final inflation readings for January and February will also be published in March, following revisions to the statistical basket. Moving now to a major corporate rescue unfolding in the UK. A major UK corporate rescue is now edging closer, with Parliament told a £16 billion rescue deal for Thames Water is expected to land on the Prime Minister's desk soon. The company, under heavy scrutiny over billing disputes, sewage incidents, and service failures, has been described by one MP as dead in the water, with arguments that any further delay is pointless and that Thames should be rebuilt as a company for public benefit. Speaking today, Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer did not confirm the terms of the rescue package, but said the government has already moved to strengthen oversight and control.
We have taken measures in relation to strengthening oversight and the control that we have. We won't hesitate to go further, and I'll make sure she gets a meeting with the relevant minister to discuss.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister is also pointing to closer trade ties with Europe as a lever to ease cost of living pressure.
The deal that we've struck with the EU means lower prices at the checkout, more choice on the shelf, and more money in people's pockets. It's good for British fishers and farmers who face less red tape, selling our world-class produce into a crucial market. It comes alongside the opportunity for young people to work, travel across Europe, the work we're doing to cut energy bills, and closer work on defence.
That was UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer. And finally, a look at markets. European stock markets traded without a clear direction on Wednesday as mixed earnings from major companies weighed on sentiment. The Eurozone's Stocks 50 slipped 0.2% to 5,982, while the Pan-European Stock 600 edged up 0.2% to a fresh record high of 619. ASML tumbled nearly 5% following results released by AMD, even as Infineon outperformed the broader chip sector on the back of its own earnings. Siemens fell almost 8% after announcing a $1 billion investment to expand its U.S. manufacturing footprint. Santander dropped 3.5% after reporting earnings and revealing a $12.2 billion acquisition of U.S. regional lender Webster Bank. Novo Nordisk also sank 17% after issuing a weaker-than-expected outlook for its weight loss drug, while UBS slid 6% despite posting revenue growth. In contrast, Air Liquide and BASF rallied on optimism that Europe may soften its emissions reduction rules. And that's it for the international segment of the newscast. The news recap is coming up on the other side of the break.
Caribbean dreams, instant turmeric tea. What you put in is what you get out. What you put in is what you get out. Yeah. Build up your body, boost up your brain. Take on the world now. Say bye-bye pain. Caribbean dreams, instant turmeric tea. Be good to you. Caribbean dreams, instant turmeric tea. Distributed by Amalgamated Distributors Limited.
has been coming along well.
Thanks, man. You know, it's a long time I've been working at it.
I can see that. I saw your mail by the gate, so I'll pick it up for you. But tell me something, why are you still receiving dividend checks by mail?
What do you mean about that?
You need to give JCST a mandate.
You know, me hear about the mandate them. I'm going over there right now.
A mandate means giving instructions to the Jamaica Central Securities Depository Limited, JCST, relating to the handling of your dividend or interest payment. There are 3 types of mandates. The first is a bank mandate. The second is a hold mandate. Lastly, we have what we call a third-party mandate, with which the investor may wish to send their dividend or interest to someone other than the parties on their account or institution of their choice.
And now to recap our top stories. In the local news, Cygnus Credit Investments breaks $15 million revenue barrier. Regionally, IMF reports 3% growth for Antigua as debt pressures persist. And internationally, RBA hikes rates 25 basis points as Treasurer blames private demand. Those were the stories making today's CBX Evening News. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Rachelle Moncrief. Thanks for watching CBX, your vision, your business, your source.
Alexia Beckford. You're watching CBX, your region, your business, your source.
The